Hello, welcome everyone to today's podcast, The Engineer Whisperer. I'm super excited to have you here, to have you back. Happy 2025. And as I'm starting season 5 of my podcast, I am I am starting with an awesome guest. And let me invite him in. Nikhil, welcome to the podcast.
Vanakkam, namaste, and good day to all. And thank you, Andrea, for having me.
Well, I'm super excited that we made it happen. And tell us a little bit about you and tell us why this is so special.
Okay, so my name is Nikhil Rao. I'm the site leader and chief engineer for Boeing Engineering in India, in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. And I've been with Boeing for 20 years. I've been obsessed with airplanes ever since I was 3 years old. So it is a dream job for me. And so I love what I do. And I also have a personal connection because I love to travel. And Boeing, connects the whole planet and makes it a little bit smaller. It keeps all of us safe. We build products that protect freedoms and democracy worldwide, and we, get to explore everything from the ocean bed to outer space. So it is truly a privilege to work here, and I that is always top of my mind when I come into work, and it's full of excitement. My wife also loves to travel. My whole family actually loves to travel, and I've got a wife and a neurodiverse son and a neurotypical daughter. And while I have Indian heritage, my wife is Mexican American. So there's tons of diversity just within the family, and that keeps life interesting as well outside of work.
Well, I wanted to invite you here to share, a few things, your transition through leadership to where you are right now. And then to also talk about this bigger transition that you recently did as of moving from US to India. So let's start maybe with this second one. I'm so curious. What was your mindset as you, let's say, before you made the decision to move? What drove you, and what discussions did you have within the family? Tell us more.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy decision, and normally my wife has lived in China and other places, and so between the two of us, it would be easy. We can live anywhere in the world and most anywhere in the world and be happy. But with a neurodiverse son, it became a little bit more of a complex decision and not an easy, straightforward decision to just move. Furthermore, it's not just any global assignment that you would go take could make a commitment to, because in the past I've been offered and places like Riyadh and Saudi Arabia, and it wasn't the right fit for what I wanted to do and how I thought I could best contribute. In this particular case, it was a good fit, and so it made sense on the career side, but really it was the personal side that made the decision a little bit more complex and challenging. And the why behind it is really that the whole world is globalizing. And so it is a great exposure and experience for our children, undoubtedly. Uh, but within, for my company, it's almost an imperative. So Boeing, as you know, has a 108-year heritage. It is a US company, and we always operated as a hub and spoke in the past, and it worked. It worked beautifully and well. Just within the 20 years that I've been at Boeing, there, you know, has been a transition on the commercial airplane side, for example, where most of the airplanes we were delivering would go to countries in the West. And now every third 737 is going to China, every fifth maybe going to India. And the uh, aircraft going to Western countries is a very small percentage. And so one of the keys to success for any company that wants to continue for another for another 100 years is really having customer intimacy, customer knowledge, and you can't call that in from 10,000 miles away. I'll give you a couple of examples. I had a team in a different Southeast Asian country, and I was visiting them when there was a call that came in to say, "Hey, the airline in that region is very upset because they're not meeting their 737 is not meeting their range requirements and other things like that." And the engineer in me would say, "Okay, let's get a pen and paper and start doing the math." And I would have been, at it for 3 weeks or 3 months to
That's
prove
right.
that The aircraft actually does perform as designed. However, we didn't have to put in too much effort because the engineer next to me, who is a local hire from that region, they opened their mouth and said, "Hey, have you checked for smuggled goods and contraband that's not on the bill of manifest?" And within 24 hours, sure enough, there was a whole lot of cargo and payload that was being snuck in and smuggled in on the in the cargo bay that resulted in lower range. And that's a mindset that none of us, at least from the West, we wouldn't have ever even thought to ask that question or simplify it. A better example, because some will say, okay, well, that's a one-off, is the region I am in right now in India. Being here, I'm learning so many new things. For example, over 95% of the fleet here is leased, and so they don't. The airlines in India don't prefer a model, or at least right now, where they own aircraft, and the way they operate is different than the West. And I'm not judging it good or bad, but the way they operate results in 45% more fuel burn than the way things operate in the West. And so there is an opportunity space, but understanding how airlines, how your customers in any business actually use and operate your products is invaluable. And you can't dial that in, or even if you travel, sometimes it's different than living in a region, understanding the mindset on how people make decisions and why they make decisions is an invaluable experience for me in this role, among other things.
What I'm hearing, Nikhil, is this mindset of curiosity, of being open to new ideas, to asking questions, to not knowing. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
it's curiosity and courage, because I'll share the other aspect that it's easy to fall into is a comfort zone. You have a house, you got a pool, you've got all the creature comforts, especially in the US. You take a sidewalk for granted. Here in India, we have sidewalks, but you cannot pass or walk on them because you've got open electrical wires and all kinds of things. It's just the nature of the environment. But there's so much that there's so many creature comforts that you take for granted, that you come and appreciate, again, being in a different context, that again gives you a lot of humility. And so one of the in addition to the curiosity, having that courage to step out of your comfort zone is really, really critical part of anyone's success, leader or not.
Well, tell me about this courage, because one of the things that why I created the podcast is to bust this myth that we cannot learn courage, that we either you have it or you don't. So I don't believe in that. I believe in the growth mindset. So maybe tell us an example of story of your transition through leadership, where you could keep courage, and how important was courage for you, or how you learned courage. Tell us more.
Yeah. I'll butcher the saying, because it was either Plato or Socrates, or maybe it was Lao Tzu from China, who said you become brave by doing brave acts. You become, I've forgotten the quote here. However, I'll talk about myself, the
Yes.
mindset that I've always had. So um, let me actually give you a different quote. So the difference between a courageous person and a non-courageous person is the choice that the individual makes to run towards danger, right? Because the truth is, even the hero is afraid. The knight is afraid of the dragon too,
Yes.
but makes a choice to run towards the dragon and try to slay it. So
Yes.
understanding that is really, really important, that there's a choice involved, and you have to make those intentional choices throughout your career. Now, for me, I don't think a lot of these decisions are courageous in my lingo, because a part of what a mindset that I've always embraced from day one is I try to operate as though it's my name on the side of the building, right? And so the Boeing aircraft company, it's the Rao aircraft company. And uh, throughout my career, actually, even as a level one engineer, level two engineer, I was able to change, airplane level requirements and objectives, which is, very challenging to do.
Yes.
And it started with curiosity, but it really took a lot of courage to do that. But it didn't feel courageous to me because I operate like it's my name on the side of the building. And so, and of course, then you have to be okay with, okay, you, you have to be wise in how you go about doing it, because again, there can't be any ego involved, right? But if you can do things with humility and courage, you can open doors not only for yourself, but more importantly, you can help the airplane in this particular context for me, and make things better.
Tell me more about how you learned this. How did you discover this in your own life? How did you get to this that I want to be a leader who thinks that and operates as my name is on the building?
Interesting question. I grew up with Indian parents, and Indian parents are very compassionate, caring, but they have very, very high standards. And for me, I was always an independent thinker, and they might call it a rebel. So I've always had that streak in me to listen to folks, including my parents, and arrive at a decision that makes most sense for myself. So that's something that I really inculcated at a very, very young age, right? And no one in my family was an idol or an influence for me per se when it came to aeronautical, because the advice I got was you should be a doctor, you should be, uh, I didn't have anyone in my family, and so, but I knew ever since I was 3 that I loved airplanes, and I charted my course with humility again, and seeking advice, taking advice where it made sense to do so, and making my own decision, having the courage of my own convictions when that needed to happen as well. So that's not the best answer for you, Andrea, but it's just something that's in my DNA, I guess.
I think that is the answer. I think being taking a stand of who you are from a young age and then going on that path of discovering who I am so that I can even more stand for who I am, and then through
Mhm.
that knowing what I want. So it's that combination what I'm hearing of knowing who I am, knowing what I want, and then being resilient and going on that path that you see. And I think I get it because I I was the same kid. So let me confess here. Um, in my family, I'm the first one who finished college, who has a degree. Um,
Fantastic.
so it was a path that I chose, and I wanted to choose education and go towards it. And in my family, yeah, nobody could tell me how to do it. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Mhm.
It was like, if you want to go, fine, you go. You have to figure it out. We'll support you, but you have to figure it out because we don't know. So that comes with, and let me check in with you. For me, it came with at an early age, kind of wisdom. Is this, as I said, this combination of knowing who you are, what you want, and then wanting to go for it. It just puts you on this very focused mindset.
Yeah.
Did that happen to you as well?
Yeah, I think you articulated it so well, beautifully, Andrea. So I will say maybe you and I were a little bit lucky and privileged, because many people that I
Mm.
work for here, and seek, and they come to me about what they want to be when they grow up, even though they're, maybe in their 40s or something, have not found the spark that really makes them tick, right? Luckily for me, I found it when I was 3, and it was easy. Every decision out of
Yes.
that. One of the things that really confounded me when I went to college was that you had people who had undecided majors that did not even compute in my brain. And how can you have that? So I think, I do acknowledge that I had privilege in at least knowing and falling in love at a very, very young age,
Yeah.
and getting that clarity very, very young. So what do I usually share with people who still have not really been able to find that spark? What I really encourage them to do is be really mindful of going forward. I tell them, take a look at your outlook or your life over the last 3 to 6 months. Go through it and understand which were those meetings, which were those events, where you were excited. You're like, I can't wait for that to happen. And which ones were the meetings and conversations and activities that you dreaded? Oh, I got to
Mhm.
get up and go to the gym again, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And what that does is it starts when you become mindful of it. Then it starts giving you clues, context clues on what is it that you really really love. So a good analogy for that is, when I reflect upon my energy levels, I realize I hate doing taxes. As tax season is coming up, I hate doing taxes. So I might spend 2 hours doing taxes, but it feels like I spent 2 months. I am completely wiped out. Uh, However, maybe aeronautical work, engineering work, technical work, I have, I suddenly look up and I realize it's 8 p.m. It's like, wow, where did the time go? I just came to work, like 10 minutes ago and it's already 8 p.m. And, because when you're doing something you love, it doesn't feel like work. And, and that's really the trick in the context that we want to help unlock for all people. And what I encourage is, even though people may be Boeing employee, I say, if your passion is opening an Italian restaurant, let's figure out how to do that because I want people to feel
Mm.
fulfilled in their life's journey, right? And so um, that's really the spark. I really hope that everyone can find the spark inside them.
Well, thank you very much for giving us that example of how you do it. And and those who are listening, that's a great example. I can tell you from my experience. So I encourage you to do that work, what Nikhil is talking about, and look at your life and your energy level and the spark. Because I'm a big believer that that spark is everywhere. Like it, it's around us, it's within us, and it shows up. So get that focus very, very like a lantern or what is that, a
Mhm.
flashlight, and then and be detail oriented in this case. Well, let's go back to you and your transitions, because um one of the transition points in a leader's life is going from a first line manager into a manager of managers. Now,
Mhm.
at Boeing and in different departments looks different. Some call it director, some call it senior. But either way, I'm wondering, what was something challenging for you that happened, that you experienced as you moved through that leadership level?
Yeah. So, you know, I'll maybe go a little bit further back. I want to be a tech fellow. I want to be a technical person, and I was given the opportunity to serve in an acting manager role. And it's not something that I thought, okay, fine, I'll help out because I have a helpful personality. It's like, okay, uh, I'll help out for a while, and it was 14 months. And uh, the joy of bringing out, unlocking the potential of the team and the individuals within it was good. And then I went back into a technical role, and then later on I moved into management because I felt like I had the ability to contribute at a larger scale, and so that was my transition into first line management. There was a little bit of reluctance there, but now I'm happy with that shift. When I became a senior manager, that was again another transition, but I'll just mainly focus on my transition from senior manager into an executive role. So whether you're a manager or senior manager, there are a few traps that people fall into. So your management experience, you want to start practicing and overriding these traps. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One trap that people fall into is you always have constraints. And the first thing that comes out of people's mouth is, I need more people, I need more time, and I need more money. Great. You will never get any of those things. So when you come to that realization, right, and you have that, then you ask yourself, what is the right path? Because you can, get that answer and then get frustrated. And
Mm.
but the trick in to avoid that trap is really around prioritization. So I learned in my management journey to stop asking for those things because it's a waste of everyone's time and energy. And so I would go to my leaders and ask them to prioritize the work, right? And sometimes they would say, as we came through prioritization, they would realize, hey, okay, certain things will have to move to the back burner, stop. Or they would give me, coming to the realization in a partnership way, they would say, oh, actually, you do need more, more money or people or time. And so they give it, right? So that's one trap to avoid and the sooner you hone that skill, you'll continue to go up the management ladder. The other trap to avoid is that, and I think many people would have observed this, is many leaders have this mindset that what got them to their current position, uh, that doing the same thing will get them to the next level or help the team further, right? And so the truth is, as you continue to progress in the leadership journey, you can't always apply learnings and the toolkits that you've gained from the past.
Yes.
A simple example would be, okay, if you were you were working lean stuff before and now you're in an engineering context, you can't just go apply lean because engineering inherently involves a lot of learning and failing and learning and quote unquote it's value added waste, I'll call it that way. But you can't just you will actually have the unintended consequence and the wrong effect, right? And so situational leadership is something that's really, really important. And one uh, again, I was very, very fortunate over a decade ago to get exposed and learn the Cynefin framework.
Mhm.
And that is where you have to make sense of the world that you're in and then apply the right toolkit to the right challenge and problem ahead of you, right? So that's a second trap that I'll say people need to avoid. The third practice that I would encourage people to inculcate is by going back to the courage conversation we're having, you put yourself out there and you continually put yourself in a position to make tough calls. Because the truth is, again, as you go up the management ladder, all the easy decisions have been made. Because the first time they made this, just only the most vexing, complex problems that no one has been able to solve, they come to your desk. And so, you know, and you a part of these tough decisions will also involve a lot of ambiguity, a lot of uncertainty. And so sort of like, baseball player will have batting, they'll have a batting average. They're not hitting a home run every single time. The more you practice, you can increase your batting average when it comes to these difficult decisions.
Yes.
And so again, the sooner you can hone these, your opportunities will unlock when you can start to do those things with ease.
So are you saying that let's get into liking these difficult decisions? So it's like change your mindset that these are opportunities to practice, to hit more, to get better. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, so the world is filled with opportunities brilliantly disguised as insoluble problems, right? And so the sooner you can shift your mindset, the
Yes.
better it will be for you, your team, your company that you're supporting. Another practice that I'll say that should be strengthened, and I'm not an expert, but I strive very, very hard, is around communication. And in my because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? And in the past, I used to try to improve my communication, where I there would be mistakes, there would be misunderstandings, there'd be failures. I learned from those, and I try to improve my communication the next time. In recent years, I've really shifted that mindset further, and I challenge myself to say, how do I communicate? Because I'm communicating 1,100 plus people. How do I communicate in a way that I cannot be misunderstood?
Mm.
And one of the analogies is from our own functional test in the factories. When we, build the aircraft, we pressurize the fuselage, we move these control surfaces, and we test. And that team that does functional test, they don't use words like no, because it sounds like go, and someone could get seriously hurt. And so they use words like affirmative and negative, right? So because you're running engines, it's very, very loud with the headset. you have to communicate in a way that you cannot be misunderstood, because
Yeah.
in that situation, life and death depends on it. But I've really tried to inculcate that practice into my daily life, is how do I communicate, whether it's with my son, daughter, or wife, or teammates. How do I communicate in a way that can't be misunderstood?
I love,
And
yeah, I love that practice. Tell me more.
so it isn't easy by any means. I'll say when it comes to communication, the first thing. So if we go a little bit deeper in it, right? So uh, there are a couple of sub practices on underneath that communication. So I'll say
Mm.
the first thing is to seek to understand before being understood. So it
Yes.
actually starts with listening and
Yes.
seeking
That's what came to
before
my
you
mind
communicate.
too. That's what came to my mind too.
Yeah. And then the another sub practice below that is delivery and empathy, right? Because no one cares what you think until they know that you care, right? And so uh, it has to be genuine, it has to be authentic, it has to come from a place of caring
Yes.
versus
Yes.
do, as I say, type forms of communication. So there's a lot to unpack just within the communication space, but it is a really critical practice for all of us as human beings, whether you're a leader or not, because I feel like that is the bane of human existence, Israel, Palestine, and whatnot. If human beings are able to connect differently, we would have different outcomes. And the last thing I'll say on the transition, as you go on your leadership journey, is really around inculcating a practice of self-reflection and awareness. And so doing that on a daily basis, monthly basis, every interaction is the opportunity to build trust or destroy trust. And so almost every interaction that you had, and you might have had 8,000 interactions in a day, really starting to reflect and think about, how did I show up in that conversation? Maybe I had back pain and I didn't show up in that meeting. I showed up in the meeting with a scowl on my face, and people thought I was mad at them. And just really being uh,
It-
self-reflective throughout the day, daily, weekly, monthly, hourly practice is really, really critical to self-correct. It's kind of like in a control system on an aircraft. You have a feedback loop, and you can auto-correct if you're going off course. And all of us as leaders need that system. And a part of that system might actually be extrinsic, where you have a support group around you, and they observe and say, "Hey, Nikhil, are you okay?" I'm checking in with you because you don't
Yes.
look
Yes.
okay. And so, keeping that, setting that up as well.
So have you already set that up and had this mindset before you moved into the executive role, this reflective leadership, or is this something that you picked up after you became an executive?
Oh, it's been a journey throughout. It's been a
Okay.
journey throughout, and I can go year by year and other things like that, right? And I talked about communicating with empathy, and I'll go back to an example from 2014 because I wasn't a very empathetic communicator. I think I had empathy, but as a good engineer, I like to solve problems, and I think, and so Andrea, you would come to me with a serious problem
Problem.
challenge that you're going through, and I would say, here's what I think, and I would solve your problem, right? So part of that was, okay, let me just listen, and sometimes you're just venting, and I don't even need to solve
That's
it.
true.
But the
Yes.
bigger thing, the bigger thing is, I challenged myself. I created a mantra back in 2014, and I said, I want to think with my heart. And now when I
Oh,
respond, that mantra just kind of, I play that mantra before I respond to anything, and then it helps me calibrate the words coming out of my mouth to start off with heart. I still, and make sure that I convey uh, some genuine, because I do have genuine, it's in my heart, but I genuinely care about people and my team and the product. Uh, but in the way I was communicating, it wasn't conveying. So it's
yes.
creating that mantra for myself. So reflection is a continuous journey. Even on my deathbed, it'll be, it'll be like, oh, I could have done things differently and better. And, how do you improve from there? So,
Well, I wanted to ask, which I think you answered, of how, if you would give an advice to someone who wanted to start, how would they do it? And you said, pick a mantra. I use a different language. I say that intention, pick an intention, choose your intention.
Yeah,
For you, uh, think with your heart. For me, that's being in that mindset of pay attention to your heart, not just to your mind, and just to as you said, people not don't just want a solution. Some just want to be heard. They just want that,
right,
5 minutes to get heard, and then they will come up with their own solutions. They almost like they know their solution too. They just needed to let go of the emotional charge that problem caused. Well, it's so
absolutely.
wonderful to hear about reflection, and I'll ask it this way: if someone hasn't kind of been on the off side of reflecting and using this work because they think, oh, that just seems like a lot of work. Like, how can I do it every day, every time, like I just don't have the time and energy. What would you tell them, and what's maybe a small step that you would encourage someone to just try out, see,
Yeah.
and do?
So that's a great question because you're the engineer whisperer, and engineers will definitely. I'm an engineer, so we'll overthink, and it's like I need. Uh, so what I would advise is start where you are and keep it really, really simple, right? So I'll give you an example. One, maybe again a few years ago, the practice I was really trying to be mindful of was around recognition. And I do walk the floor or production line constantly, and however, I wasn't as mindful about that practice, and so I just kept 2 coins in my left pocket. And the practice I created for myself is every time I would uh, recognize the hard work that people were, someone was putting in, and I had that conversation with them. Uh, or it could have been, yeah, I just moved a coin into the other pocket. Okay,
Ah, uh-huh.
really, really simple. Or, another practice I had was around uh, perhaps interrupting people or not letting them finish it. So I had a rubber band around my wrist, and I just knocked myself, and then it became a muscle memory. So these practices don't have to be elaborate, 17-point plan. How do
Yes,
you
I know.
just start where you are? Um, Start the practice. It usually is only 5 to 7 days, and we quickly create that habit and practice that you're looking for. So don't
Yes.
overthink it, don't overcomplicate it. Start the practice, seek input from others as to how they've gone about doing it. And maybe it'll work for you, or maybe it won't. But just start where you are and keep it simple.
Awesome. Well, those are all great examples. I haven't thought about them myself, so I learned something too. I'll just pass them along if you give me permission. I mean, this is
Of
this
course.
is awesome. They're so simple and fun, and I think that's also what I want to bring in and give you that feedback, that what I'm hearing in the sense since I've known you, the leadership for you is also fun. Like you make it what, like, playful, that
Yeah.
it's for us on the other side, for us who are with you, working with you, or interacting with you. We are also having fun in your environment, around you. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to check in, is this something that is conscious on your end? Is this something that you also worked on, or is that a given talent that you were born with?
Yeah. So I think Mark Twain said it best when he said that life is too important to be taken seriously. And so you have to have fun, and it has to be deliberate practice, right? And how, if you can find ways to make it fun, uh, that is even better. Now, a part of what I try to do is unlock uh, as much leadership potential I can out of everybody. But I'll give you another example, which is more family related, right? Because one, my wife will basically say, keep work at work, and you're not a manager at home. So but there's some really important practices that I want to make sure that I inculcate in my kids, for example. And so the reflection practice, the way I've inculcated that in my kids and the family is every Sunday night, we have now this habit and practice that we've created. Every Sunday night, we all go around the dining table and we say, what is one thing that you loved from this past week? And what is one thing that you're looking forward to or need help with in the week ahead? And just one thing, right? And it creates that practice of gratitude when people reflect upon, hey, yeah, the week was not all terrible and bad and
Yes.
gloomy.
Yes.
And it then also helps them with some forward thinking of to say, actually, Thursday, you know, we have a scheduling problem. That might be something my wife would say is that who's going to pick up the kids? Something on their mind, but it also then helps get it off their chest and we can, so it can be fun, it can be engaging, it can scale, and again, start where you are, keep it simple, and learn and adjust as you go.
And I will add, involve
And
others.
by the way, I should give credit for that last one to Alan Mulally. I should give credit to for the on the last one to Alan Mulally because he created something like that for his family. And Alan Mulally was our CEO for Boeing Commercial Airplanes and CEO for Ford, third
Mm.
best CEO in history. And he had done that. So that's a page that I took from his book and not in exactly his practice, probably because I never ever sat at his dining table, but I, said, hey, that's a good idea. I'm going to start that for my family. So,
There you go. And today you shared it with us, so somebody will go, I'm gonna take what Nikhil did and said, and I'm gonna go and do it with my kids and with my wife. And
sure.
that is what this podcast is about, is us sharing and us inviting you who is listening to take these ideas and go try them out. They might work, they might not, but we won't know until you try them out. And we encourage you to go try them because, as you shared with us, Nikhil, all these are are just words until we put them into practice and until we put them in our hearts and our minds, and then we create impact. And that is what I'm inviting everyone who's listening to go find one small step and one small space in their life, in your life right now, where you could create impact in a small way. And the small will grow and will turn into exponential benefits to others, to you, to your community. Well, Nikhil, we are at the end of the podcast, and time flies when you have fun. And I had so much fun having you here today. But before we close, I would like to give you the mic back, and I want you to, you know, have the last words. What would you like us to walk out with, to take away from today's conversation?
Okay, first, let me thank you, Andrea, for it's an honor to be your first guest of 2025. And I also want to thank all the listeners because you are taking time out of your busy schedule. We all have 36 hours of work a day and not enough hours in the day. So the fact that you have spent time listening to this, I really, really appreciate it. Jim Lovell, who's the commander for Apollo 13 and an astronaut, said there's really three types of people in this world: people who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who wonder what happened. The fact that people have taken the time to today to listen to this podcast means that you're in the first bucket. So I know you're going to do good in your community, in your work, and you're going to do great things. And I hope you found this useful.
And on that note, thank you very much for being here. And it has been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.